Now, all these hairs don't have to be exactly, you know, next to each other like little soldiers. They don't have to be all perfect, but you want everything to kind of go in the same general direction. Now, what I'm gonna do next is grab the liner brush before I bake, and I'm just gonna do a couple of single hairs. And I will show you what that looks like in a minute. And again, this is just the thing I like to do. I like some wispy hairs just kind of hanging out. When your brush is loaded, it'll give you a nice thick juicy line. And then little by little, it kind of runs out of steam and it gives you this little translucent line. That's when I use that action to start making a few baby hairs. Usually one or two, whatever's left. I will show you this. Let me get up close here and do a couple of those for you. See, I'm just taking some paint. And I'm just following along where those other hairs are. And again, after this, if you're happy, you can stop. Ta-da, done painting baby's hair. And I'm entering into third layer land, and I don't want to. I want to bake this on before I start doing a third layer. Let's see. So we went from first layer, which is, let me grab another baby. We went from first layer, which was this, to second layer, which is this. And then the third layer will be pretty much the same thing, just with hair that's just a little bit darker. Hey, it's Saturday, and I managed to score a little paint time out here. I'm excited. I thought today was going to be a no painting day. And my son had a lot of things he wanted to do, and we made cream puffs from scratch. And for lunch we did a huge stir fry, and we cooked together. He's 6, and it was fun. And now he's watching Nut Job 2, which is some animated talking animals smashing into things, falling out of things. He's very happy. So that gives me about 2 hours to paint. I'm so excited. Let's see, where were we last time? I think we were on second layer. I have all these babies in different stages, so let's just go through it. So this is first layer. Remember, it's just kind of sketched out with some light paint. Here is a little bit of second layer. Just going through and doing a little bit more. Here's second layer also. Probably this is a better example. I went to town a little bit more on that baby. Just going a little darker using that liner brush to put in some details. Here is third layer. This baby's almost done. I'm just gonna do some baby hairs and some eyebrows on this baby, and this baby's done. And this baby actually had 4 layers. She has some little baby hairs on. Her neck hairs are all cleaned up. Her ears look good. I'm probably done with this baby. I'm just gonna probably put on some eyebrows, and because I have a hard time stopping and I'm just kind of always nitpicking at everything, I will probably do some more baby hairs when I do eyebrows. And I'm gonna seal this up and texture it, and the way I'm gonna do that is just with some matte medium. Now, there is no like magic number. This can be done and done. I have a hard time stopping, and I have a hard time doing sparsely painted babies, but that's okay. And some babies I might do 5, 6, 7 layers, just depending on where I feel good stopping, or if maybe I have somebody who can give me an intervention. That would be great. So let's do third layer. And I think this baby probably only needs 3. This baby's hair is just a little bit lighter than the last baby, and I kind of want it to stay that way. If I go too dark and too thick, it's going to kind of take away from the idea that I had for this baby. So I'm going to try to do my best to keep it light. This sat out while I was busy making pastry, and it dried up a little bit. That's the cool thing about Genesis. I like to keep this covered, but I forgot to put the cover on. It's not the end of the world. The thing you want to watch out for is this paint. You can get it wet again with paint thinner and keep going. And some people will do that forever and ever. For me, it has its saturation point. There's just a point where you just can't, I can't do it anymore. It starts to get, how do I explain it? It gets old, and the little particles in the paint, they don't break up as well as they used to, and they become kind of chunky. And I guess if I went to town and I was really diligent about it, I could, you know, save that paint. But usually it's kind of at the end, and it's been a long time, and I'm ready for some fresh color anyway. But when that happens, I usually let it dry up and I toss it and start over again. I just don't like having chunky bits on this baby because they're hard to get off. You know, when you're painting and all of a sudden you get this like little paint booger on there, oh, it drives me insane. You gotta get a toothpick and take it off, and it wrecks the hair around it. I'd just rather not fight it. It's easy enough to just make some new paint. And those looks like a lot of paint here, but it's really not. It's mostly thinner. Took the rake brush again, just the same one I was using, and I'm just going over it with paint that's just slightly darker, and I'm doing more careful work. I'm making all these little hairs purposeful. I want to make sure that they look really nice. They're not fuzzy, they're not all weird shaped, they're going in the right direction. The lines are clean, they're where they're supposed to be. And I'm kind of shading with lines, with hair. And so you're just kind of shading. Do you remember Where the Wild Things Are? Maurice Sendak's book? Your kids probably read it. You probably read it when you were a kid. Well, he uses, you know, pen and ink. And he uses line to create dimension and shading and texture. And that's what we're doing. We're just using these lines to create an illusion. And no, this doesn't look like Where the Wild Things Are hair, and I didn't, that's a bad example. But since we're on the subject, you should go pull that book out and take another look at it. And if you haven't seen Where the Wild Things Are movie and you got a crazy little boy, I tell you, every once in a while I pull out that movie because it's just deep. I love it so much. Some people didn't like it. Some people didn't get it. They were like, oh, what does any of this have to do with Where the Wild Things Are? Well, you know, it's just taking a deeper look at childhood and feelings and dealing with feelings, and that feeling of not having control or being out of control when you're a kid, and everybody being so much bigger and more powerful, you know? Don't we all have that fantasy when we're a kid? Like, if I were the mom, I mean, my kids have said that to me, and I said that to, you know, the people that, the grown-ups that were in my life when I was a kid. If I were the president, if I were the mom, if I were the teacher, if I were the principal, this is what I would do. And what if just for a little while you did have that power? What would happen? You know, you'd still be you. You'd still make mistakes. And unfortunately, you wouldn't have the people who loved you most around you to help guide you through that. That's what I got from the movie. It was like there he was in this world where he was the king of everything and he could do whatever he wanted. And they loved him being wild and crazy and dirty. And he blew it. He absolutely blew it because he's a kid. And that's what you're supposed to do when you're a kid. You're supposed to blow it. And he doesn't know how to handle all the complex problems of that place. He doesn't know how to be the leader. He's not ready yet. And at the end of the day, when he made his mistakes and he felt all alone, all the people that he was so angry at, they weren't there. I may be the only person who saw it that way, but I totally related to all of it, especially having a wild little guy who lives in a house of adults and who sometimes feels invisible and sometimes doesn't feel like he has a voice because he's the smallest one. I love Oliver Jeffers too. Anything that man writes, geez, I wish he was around when I was a kid. I love his art. I love the way he tells a story. I love everything about him. I love his style. He's very cool dude. The dark areas dark, keeping the light areas light, and just painting hair on in the same direction. From the top of the head all the way down to the sides. So I will tell you this little funny story if you don't mind. When my kids were little, I think they were maybe like 4, they were probably 3 and 5 or 4 and, probably 4 and 2. Not that it really matters, but I'm trying to get it right. They would get into everything. Oh my goodness, I mean, I would spend my whole day just cleaning up these really silly messes that they would make. And sometimes I didn't care. They would just look cute. They were having fun. You know how kids do. They pull out all the pots and pans, and then somebody pulls out a bag of flour, and somebody pulls out the peanut butter. And before you know it, it just seems like too much chaos to deal with. And you have to pick your battles. And some days I'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe you guys are doing this. Oh. And some days I'd be like, you know what? It's cute. It's just peanut butter. It's just flour. It'll clean up. They're having fun. Let them be, Mom. Let them be. And I wish there were more of those days, but there were probably more, oh my God, what the hell are you guys doing? Days. But this one day I was going to nursing school. I was going at night when I first started so that I would go to nursing school while my kids were asleep. And I had to get up early to study before they got up, or I wasn't going to be able to study. So I was staying up late. I was getting up super early. And they were in their playroom. They were playing, and everything was quiet and peaceful. They were fed. Life was good. I was, I think, tackling the duodenum in my digestive system portion of nursing school. And I'm, reading my notes and trying to make sense of things. And out of the corner of my eye, I see something fluttering on the front lawn. And I hope I didn't tell this story in another video. I will be so I saw something fluttering out of the corner of my eye on the lawn. And I couldn't make sense of it. It looked like ghosts. So I was having this little conflict in my head. Some part of me is saying, holy crap, there are ghosts on my lawn. That's how tired I was. And then the rational part of me was going, there are not ghosts on the lawn. Why would there be ghosts on the lawn? That doesn't make any sense. And all of this is happening in the space of about a quarter of a minute. So finally I get up, I go to the window, and sure enough, it is 2 beings with arms and legs and heads, white, head to toe white. Even their hair is white. And they're absolutely naked, and they're dancing on my lawn, and they're small little people who happen to be shaped exactly like my 2 daughters. And I go out there and I can't figure out why and what, and oh, I was so tired. They had gotten into, back then, and gosh, this is how old I am, there used to be a product called Noxzema. It was this really cool stuff that you would wash your face with. And I had it for when I wore makeup, to wash makeup off. And I think it was probably like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old. It had been in the back of the cupboard for so long. And they had found it, and they loved the way it felt. They took off all their clothes, they covered themselves with Noxzema, and because it has that, I don't know what's in it, camphor, something like that, it made, when the wind hit their body, it felt cool and tingly and weird. And so they decided it would feel even better if they went outside where there was lots of wind, and they ran around and danced all over the lawn. Yeah. It wasn't my most bright and shiny mommy moment. My biggest problem with all of that was they were in the front yard, and I can't even imagine what my neighbors were thinking. Back then, I didn't think it was so funny. Oh, Lordy, I was just like, I don't know, I was kind of a burnt out mess. I was kind of doing too much, more than I probably should have been doing as a young mom. I was a really, really young mom. Trying to be a good mom, but we needed an extra income, and I was trying to go to school without taking time away from my kids, and oh gosh, I was a hot mess back then. I was living on no sleep back in those days. Alrighty, I think I am actually done with this 3rd layer. I'm gonna bake it on.